We all know that Napoleon's invasion of the Russian Empire ended, how shall we say, poorly. But one of the big questions is, what was he hoping to achieve and were these goals realistic? So, a bit of context, when Napoleon had risen to power in the year 8, or 1799 as it's normally known, Europe looked like this. By 1812, on the eve of Napoleon's famed invasion of Russia, it looked like this. Napoleon had managed to defeat the Prussians, Russians and Austrians before this, and after rearranging their territories had demanded that they take part in what's called the Continental System. The Continental System was basically the Don't Trade with Britain club, and this lack of trade was quite damaging to Russia. As such, in 1810 the Russians simply opted to ignore Napoleon's demand and trade anyway, which the French Emperor did not like one bit. Now, this wasn't the only problem that plagued Franco-Russian relations. The first was ideological. Russia represented everything that the French Emperor despised. It wanted a meritocratic Europe in which certain rights were enshrined and certain values were seen as being simply universal. And Russia did not embody these ideals. The second issue was Poland. In 1807, Napoleon had defeated the Fourth Coalition and as a result took this territory from Prussia and gave it to the brand new Duchy of Warsaw. In 1809, Austria tried to defeat Napoleon and just like everyone else, they failed. And so, as punishment for even trying in the first place, they lost this territory to the new Polish state. So how does this concern Russia? Well, the last independent Polish state was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and that had been partitioned by Austria, Prussia and Russia. This meant that a large Polish minority lived within Russia, meaning that if there was a conflict between itself and Poland, or its patron France, there would likely be an uprising. Furthermore, the close friendship between the Duchy of Warsaw and France meant that Poland could be used as a launching point for an invasion into Russia. As such, the Russians could not tolerate an independent Poland unless it accepted the Russian Emperor as its king. The Poles and Napoleon said no, and so things got a little bit tense. So by 1812 the French Empire was deeply bogged down by Spanish and Portuguese resistance in the Peninsular War. This was becoming costly in terms of money and lives, and so as a result Napoleon needed a win. And what better way to do so than to have a quick and easy victory by invading Russia? Napoleon knew that he couldn't continue to fight the costly Peninsular War and invade Russia without Prussia and Austria on side. As such, Napoleon pressured them to commit small forces to the invasion, which they agreed to. The idea being that they would make an enemy of Russia and so wouldn't be able to join it against Napoleon. So as we all know, Napoleon's invasion of Russia was a complete failure, and so surely he must have been able to predict some of the issues he faced, right? Well, no. Napoleon was convinced of his own genius and considered the Russians to be an inferior people who would be unable to withstand his armies for very long. As we all know, this invasion went terribly for France and Napoleon's days in power were soon numbered. So in summary, Napoleon invaded Russia for many reasons. To enforce the Continental System, which in theory would starve Britain of money and resources, to destroy Russia as a potential future enemy so that France could focus entirely on the Spanish, Portuguese and the British, and to strengthen his grip over Eastern and Central Europe as well as the new Polish state to enforce Napoleonic ideals there. However, the most obvious reason he invaded was simple. He thought he was going to win. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, with extra thanks to my patrons that you see on screen now. And a special thanks to James Bisonet, David Archaeologist, Azarka Flash, Party Boyko, Rob Waterhouse, Yashar N. Naman, Chris Wicker, Miles Bailey Brentgard, Michael Reynolds, Gustav Swan, Toonrick, Onion Duck, Maggie Paxkowski, Winston Kaywood, Vasily Aravidis, Anthony Beckett, Adam Harvey, Ike, Sky Chappelle and the Amusement Parchives.